Now let's say we actually want to use this for emission distance, which is going to mean how far from the surface to be born. We'll set the speed to 0, and we'll go ahead and say emission distance has that map assigned. So let's go ahead and move those up. Let's actually switch to pistol shot, and let's birth a good number of particles there. And so you can see with emission distance, we want these particles to be born, 50 units away from the surface. But we want to use a mask to control how far they are. Now this mask says, okay, in bright areas, I want to use the full potential, and in darker areas, use less of the emission distance. Now that's all great, you say, but what if I want to use the white areas to be low and the black areas to be high? Well, what you do then is you're going to come in and modify the gradient here, which interprets those values. And right now, all we have to do is go ahead and double-click that, and we will switch that around. And we'll, in order to get it to update, you're going to have to turn the variation mask off and then on. And now you can see the dark areas are the ones that have a greater emission distance, and the lighter areas have less emission distance. Now this kind of map control also works for obviously speed and emission distance, but it can also control particle size. I'll go ahead and drop that in there, and we'll go ahead and add a shape, standard shape. We want to assign that property to those particles being born out of Matterwaves. We'll tell them to use cubes. Now, of course, we don't see the shapes in here yet until we go up to the master dynamic and turn on show mesh. And we'll also turn off the ticks for right now. And what do we see? Well, the brighter areas right now, the bright areas of the map, are going to be given a larger size. Let's actually decrease this so we can actually see them. Okay. And so the white areas, the lighter areas, are going to be larger in size, and the darker areas are smaller in size. We can add extra variation with these variation spinners. And if we want to reverse this effect and have dark areas be larger and light areas be smaller, all we have to do then is go into the gradient, switch around those values, disable it, enable it, and there you go. Okay, let's go ahead and clear those out. And we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to use a light to control the emission. Go ahead and create a light, and we'll set his attenuation. Make him kind of close to that surface, but only along the top edge. And what we'll do is we'll animate him moving across, and say down there. And in order for Matterwaves to know how to use that light, what we're going to do, we'll turn off auto key here, is we want to actually have him born, we'll say 1 particle per emitter activation, so that whenever that light comes across the surface, gets near enough to the surface, we got use lights checked here, and whenever that threshold's reached, then I want to born particles. Now emission distance is turned on. Let's turn him off, and let's get back into perspective view here. So again, let's just take a quick look. Under our emitter, we've got use lights turned on. We've got our light picked. We've got a threshold, so it has to have at least a 0.52 light intensity reaching that part of the surface. Okay, so, and we're going to give one pistol shot whenever that emitter is being activated. And the emitter is going to be activated by the light whenever the threshold reaches that. So as he moves across, you can see those particles being born, and the light just kind of paves a path through there. Let's go ahead and throw some speed on them to see them actually move. And we'll put some variation. Okay. Now let's actually set up something a little more complex. This time what we'll do is not only will we have the light activate them like we have now, but we'll also combine it with a variation mask to control the size. We'll take that bitmap we had, drop it back in that slot, and we'll go ahead and make sure our material is visible. And now you see, as that light comes through, he's going to activate the emitters whenever it gets bright enough. But also, Matterwaves is going to say, okay, take a look at this bitmap, and wherever those values are, actually remember we swapped around that gradient, so wherever they're dark, I want you to have large particles, and wherever it's bright, I want to have small particles. Okay, so let's also take a look. We're going to simplify this again. We're going to clear this out and set our size just to be, we'll say 2. For now, I'll have, actually, let's keep some speed, but add some variation, and we're going to turn off light emission. We'll just go ahead and delete that light. Now what's happening is these particles are being born directly out of the surface. And actually a plane's not the best example. Let's go ahead and use a sphere object. And we'll tell Matterwaves we want to be borning particles off this sphere. Now you can see they just kind of emit in a perfect circle around there. If we want to add direction variation at birth, we can come down here to the, where is it? Under the emitter direction, and we have quite a few different modes that we can use. Right now it's just set to normal, which is kind of an averaged face normal. We'll go ahead then and we'll add some direction variation there. So instead of coming straight out, they might kind of do at least 31 degrees difference. You can't see a whole lot with that, so let's go ahead and increase it. There we see quite a bit more variation. This also, let's take a look at the birth alignment. And before we do that, let's go ahead and switch to pistol shot. Let's just born a whole bunch there. We'll cut it back. Let's set our speed to be 0. And our size, let's increase that. Now you can see right now that the particles really don't seem to have any concern for their alignment based on the object surface. If we want to enact that, what we can do is come down here to emit direction. We come down here to birth alignment, and we have the ability to say, use the face normal, so to use the specific face that it's being born on. As well, you could use the average normal. And now all of those particles are going to align themselves. They're going to align their z-axis to be pointing in the same direction as the object normal. Not the, well, the averaged face normal. And then again, we can add extra variation in there, add specific rotation around that z-axis. And then we have an extra category down here called right to channel. And this is all based on the data channels that are available in thinking particles. And we're going to cover those in another video called data channels. But for now, this is pretty much the big items on Matterwaves.